on with you, Coop. How you doing?
Peace, King.
What's up, man? Yeah. We're welcoming everybody into the room. Tonight's topic, we're going to be talking about the top 10 hip hop diss records of all time, and based on degree of difficulty, because nobody really talks about it in those terms. You know what I mean?
No, actually, I love your premise for doing it. I wasn't like super excited about it until you told me, like, I want to do it at difficulty record. I think it's an angle that really doesn't get explored in the disc record. I think, disc records are impactful things.
Right.
We were talking about impact last week a lot.
Right.
Um, disc records are impactful things, and so the voice or the tone of the person tends to carry, or the weight that they have in the game tends to carry.
Right.
And so having a degree of difficulty has, I guess, the guidelines for it gives it more of a fair level playing field for all MCs. That's what I like about it.
And I want to clarify for everybody what we mean by this is the fact that basically your diss record based on who you are doing your battle rap record against. And I know one of the first people that comes up is people talk about Eminem, but when we think about it, the Sauce, that was at Benzino. What was the other joint? Nail in the Coffin, that was going to Benzino. Not incredibly high difficulty level when you think about Eminem to Benzino, or when you think about Eminem to Everlast, or when you think about, what do you think about maybe the 50 to Ja Rule on a challenging level?
So, Mike, I told you, I just kind of made what I like to call a base level list. I didn't number it
right
or anything like that. I just thought of the diss records that I thought were great and like were potentially super, super harmful to somebody or the person that they were up against. Both of 50's diss records were on my list. I think I wrote down probably just 22 diss records.
Mm-hmm.
And I had Piggybank and Back Down on there, neither one of them made my top 10. Because I think people forget, like I say this all the time, people forget how big Ja Rule was.
Right.
Like Ja Rule was really the only guy, like for a few years, it was consistently going like double, triple platinum.
Yeah, right? he was killing it, man. And he had hit records.
He was out moving Jay and Nas units wise in their prime.
I mean, yeah, he was out moving. Yeah, in his prime, he was moving more units than Jay was. I mean, if we talk about on a year-to-year basis. Jamal Banks says that Ether wasn't like that, fam. A whole bunch of jokes. Let me ask you this, because I've heard that before, that people feel like Ether was a bunch of cracks, whereas other records were more factual information. What do you think actually makes a better diss record? Are we talking about just snapping on somebody on some, just cracking jokes or whatever, or actual factual information?
I mean, first of all, I believe the whole lineage of the guys Jay was hanging with in the third verse of Ether is very factual. First of all, I mean, so let's not make it seem like it was all barbs. No. There was some truth in there. There was
like what? Like what line would you? What lines would you say?
He's like your ass went from hanging to Jazz to Kane to bit. Yeah, when he was showing like how he was trying so hard to get in the game, like that was true, Mike. Like you can go check and see, from Hawaiian Sophie to being on tour with Kane to being up in Big Shadow a little. Yeah, like all that was live.
People are saying
Mike, when you go listen to Jay's catalog, you can tell who he was getting down with at the time because he's funny and shapeshifty like that. You can see when he was fucking with Irv and Murder Inc. and DMX and John. Now, can't you? And Swiss and all them. Right. You can see when he was fucking with Kane.
I think I was saying the other day that I felt like,
You can see when he was fucking with Big and Bad Boy. You can hear it.
I was going to say, man, I was watching Original Flavors Can I Get Open video the other day or whatever. And start thinking like where his style exactly changed. I feel like when he started rocking with Sauce Money, that's when we got the Reasonable Doubt style of Jay.
Mike, I'm trying to show you it's factual because Nas did something very poignant when he did that. He showed you every time his style changed, it was associated based on who he was around.
I got you.
Right.
I got you.
That was factual. The records prove that. That's what I'm saying. That's factual. The records prove that.
Now, people keep saying The Bridge is Over by KRS. Now, if we're talking about degree of difficulty, maybe someone could say that KRS went at the whole borough of Queens, but that was really at you know, that was the MC Shan. Now, we talking about a huge degree of difficulty when you talk about KRS-One as an MC compared to MC Shan. And no
Okay,
disrespect to Shan, but I don't think so, man.
right. Isn't that more of a battle? And aren't we talking about the bridges over differently, at least on a degree of difficulty level, if he goes at Cool G Rap?
Right. Now, if KRS was going at the Juice Crew members like Cool G Rap and Big Daddy Kane, as opposed
Kane
to
ain't
Roxanne Shante and MC Shan and Marley, I think we have a whole different conversation. Now, I do want to ask you this, because Kane was writing for Shante, KRS was dissing Shante, the female in the Juice Crew, and nobody really stuck up for her on that level against KRS. Was, dare I say, some of the stronger members of the Juice Crew a little bit scared of KRS on the mic?
Um,
Is that fair to say?
I don't know if that's totally fair to say when you're talking Kane and G Rap, because that's the same level. And both of those guys are supremely confident MCs like KRS, so it's hard to imagine that. I don't know this for certain. You know, as much as people come on here and be joking and calling me an old head, this is something that precedes me.
Right.
But as it's been kind of told to me a multitude of times in different ways, is that was some of the friction kind of like with the Juice Crew, because Kane was already from Brooklyn. And he was writing for, quite frankly, Queens cats.
Right.
And was considered to be part of the Juice Crew, but it was always kind of like a separation thing because he was from Brooklyn. And I think the Bridge is Over kind of like helped kind of cement some of that separation. Because, Kane's people was probably telling him, yo, that ain't even the best look for you to even be getting into that flex with KRS like that, even if you are better. Because he's going at Queens. You're Brooklyn.
No, we're about to get to the list, but Theron just brought up a good one that we didn't even think about. 300 bars from the game when he went to G Unit. Well, I didn't think about it.
No, I thought about it. It didn't make my list. I mean, I like it. It's a dope diss record.
Do you think Game is a better rapper than 50, or is it very equal? Comparable.
I think he is now. I mean, if you would have asked me that, like Mike, when you listen to "This Is How We Do," it's like 50 murders him, dude.
Yeah,
he murders him on "This Is How We Do." Like, but also delivery wise, that's one of 50's more impressive performances. Delivery wise, like what he did on his second verse. But the guy that you start hearing on The Doctor's Advocate, like on Scream on him and records like that, is more on par with 50. The dude that you hear on the documentary 2 and 2.5 is better than 50. Like that dude that's on Dollar and a Dream. Like that dude that's on Dollar and a Dream and what's the shit with Anderson .Paak gang signs / cocaine 80s. Oh, that dude? Oh no. Like
you know what Game album I like that nobody likes? I like that Blood Moon. That album's hard.
Like you and 17 people, Mike.
Yeah, I love it. Bigger Than Me is great. Bigger Than Me is great. I like that.
Bigger Than Me is great. That's one of his better records. I don't even know if that's one of his 10 best rap songs. Though, Mike, you think that's one of his 10 best rap songs?
Hey, the Game has a great catalog, so did you just hear what he was? He was just on Clubhouse, and he said he's the best rapper in Compton. He's like, I'll out rap Kendrick.
Mike, he can rap his ass off now. People shouldn't be so dismissive.
I agree.
I don't know if I would say that, but that would be way better. How about this, Mike? I would akin that to Jay-Z versus DMX going up in a battle. Like, you would look at it just inherently listening to Jay, be like, no, he got X. It's like, no, don't discount that element in the battle. Don't never discount that real street shit in the battle, Mike.
And yes, Theron, Jesus Pieces was hard too. Let's get to this list real quick.
Mike, Jesus Piece is probably my favorite Game album.
Yeah, Jesus Piece is hard.
I had some of my favorite Game songs on there. Ali Boumaier, Name Me King.
Yeah. I mean, the sample for Ali Boumaier should win a award in itself.
I mean, Mike, I think that's one of the best Posse records of all time, actually. Like, him and Ross and 2 Chainz sound wonderful together. Yeah. Wonderful on the record. Yeah.
All right, so in the list, and you said this was no order. I got it on the screen now, and I got your handwriting here. So, all right, we talk about degree of difficulty. We got Nas Ether, Common the Bitch and You, which was going at Cube. So let me start back over. Nas Ether going to Jay-Z. Jay-Z was at the top of his game at that point. Nas was coming off of his most disappointing album of his career,
I'm about to say,
among
Mike.
other
I'm about to
things.
say. Okay, so before we go any further, last week we talked about Impact, and I told you Impact wasn't that big for me. Here's why: because I always thought the story mattered more than the impact. And so you just kind of touched on something right quick. Part of what makes Ether so impressive on the degree of difficulty is that Nas had just made the worst album of his career. And when I mean it was the worst thing he'd ever made, I mean the drop-off was sincere, even from I Am. So he was as low as he had ever been.
Mm-hmm.
Jay was as high as anybody had ever been, with the exception of maybe like Biggie in 95 or Biggie and Pac in 95 or Rakim in 88.
Right.
Like he wasn't just big, he was all time big. And so the story behind these things contextualizes the degree of difficulty.
And he was at the top of his game too, skill wise. He put together the blueprint in like a week and a half at that time. And he had all kind of features that he was going on.
9 days.
Yeah, he was killing.
I think he did the first 7 songs in 9 days or something like that.
Some crazy shit like that.
Yeah, something crazy.
Somebody in here said Against All Odds is a better diss record than Hit 'Em Up. Well, you'll be happy to know that Against All Odds is on the list and Hit 'Em Up isn't. So, all right.
We feel the same way, fam. Yeah.
So we got Nas, Ether going to Jay. Common, the bitch, and you going to Q. Oh, you got Mobb Deep, drop a gem on him, going at Pac. What made you put that on there? What made you put drop a gem on him?
I mean, first of all, I think Drop a Gem is probably the most underrated and least talked about diss record ever. Like ever. Like, first of all, that the song itself, it's a great record on a great album. You know, it's a great record on a great album. And they were the only guys from New York that when Pac said something, they immediately said something back. Like they wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, I remember Prodigy doing an article in Vibe. He was like, "Nah, I ain't that dude. Fam's talking about my health. Like,
yeah,
like we ain't having that." You know, and you want to know what was great about that record is that Prodigy was in his prime. So he like the first 3 albums, Mike. I mean, if you heard a verse from him, he delivered the goods pretty much, especially on the first 2 albums, lyrically speaking. But on that record, that was probably the first record that I heard where Havoc was great as an MC right next to Prodigy, on top of the beat being great and the hook being there and who they were talking about, Mike. Yeah, it was right there.
And I agree. And that's Pac at the top
of it. Prodigy's. That was the first time you had ever heard that on a record, where you heard Havoc on a verse and you were like, I think Havoc may have out-rapped Prodigy on this record. And it was a diss record going at Pac. That's pretty big.
I mean, in the year that it came out and where Pac was in his career at that time, I mean, that's a huge degree of difficulty. That's Tupac, superstar. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, Mike, like Havoc ended that verse. He said, kick that thug shit. Vibe magazine on some love shit. Keep it real. You don't know who you fucking with. Like, yeah, they was on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a high degree of difficulty. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of
degree of difficulty to go at Pac when Pac was going at everybody. Like, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Because, like you said,
like, it didn't get much higher.
Not everybody was answering Pac, and Pac wasn't out there. Well, he was kind of giving it to everybody, but.
No, nobody was answering Pac except for them and CNN.
Did you? I think it was. Remember,
Mike, the whole Pac thing and Mobb Deep saying something is what started the whole thing between Prodigy and Jay, because you know the takeovers on this list. This all started that. That's part of why Drop a Gem is important too, because Prodigy felt some type of ways. Like when Jay made Money Cash Hoes, he's like, "Nah, don't be talking about New York soft. We was up here talking when you was being quiet like a bitch." He said that shit live.
Yeah, New York's been soft ever since Snoop came through and crushed the building.
Yeah. I love Prodigy. Prodigy is like, nah, fam. He was like, y'all was being soft.
No, and that's crazy because, again, you know, it's like, drop a gem on him is important, man. It's
drop a gem on him is important,
now,
man.
I was going to ask you this. I lost my train of thought for a second, but no, what I was going to say was, because you know how Pac was going at even the Fugees. And so, remember the song Cowboys. Did you think that Clef's section, well, he had a back and forth with Pace One, but that part where he was like, rappers want to be actors, so they play the Jesse James character and get their bones fractured. But it sounded like it was some Pac shots in there.
I mean, a lot of, like I said, a lot of cats was, like rap is funny and it's petty. It's super petty. Rap is super petty. So there's a lot of little nicks and shots, but wasn't nobody talking live on a full record about Pac, like except for Mobb Deep.
All right, wait. So what else we got here? We got Jay to take over. We'll get into all that in a second. And then you got Tupac Against All Odds, Pusha T, The Story of Adidon, Ice Cube, No Vaseline, Beanie Siegel, Kiss the Game Goodbye Freestyle, Rick Ross, Idols Become Rivals, and you got Drake Back to Back. Now, the first one I want to ask you about on there, Pusha T, The Story of Adidon.
Okay, I think that's the least impressive of all the diss records that he did, but the most important.
Why do you think the degree of difficulty is so high for the Story of Adidon? Is it because the machine behind Drake?
I think Pusha's probably the first guy to consistently leverage the situation until he had leverage. This was the song. How about this? That record is more than just the exposure. It was almost like, oh my God, he hasn't stopped. And wait, hold on, he's better and hotter than these guys now too. It's like, whoa.
You know what I will give him? And I didn't think about this when we were, talking about degree of difficulty. And usually you think about the degree of difficulty as just the MC and his skill set. You would think that it would be a little bit difficult to find that blackface picture of Drake. And nobody had seen that. Ever.
Push said it was easy.
He said it was easy. I don't know how much I believe that, but...
I mean, that's just him. You know what I mean? Like, of course, he gonna make it seem like it's nothing.
I was talking to one of my guys the other day, right? And he said that that picture of Prodigy, Summer Jam screen or whatnot, it came from Ashanti. Because Ashanti was with, Irv. And I guess she went to the same high school as Prodigy, right? You there? Connection cut out. Hold on, we're going to get Coop back on real quick. And I'm going to finish this story. But, let's see. Get Coop right back on. Let me get back to the chat or whatnot. Break of Dawn. Degree of difficulty was high there, too. I think that's something that we do need to talk about and we need to consider on this conversation. And we're going to talk about every record that Pac had on there. Hit 'em Up, Against All Odds. When we ride on our enemies, we got Against All Odds on there, but not Hit 'em Up. And one of the reasons we didn't have Hit 'em Up on there is because it was really based on a lot of people being on the record itself. Let's see. Nobody. Let's see what else y'all got here. Dre Day. Checkmate by Jadakiss. You know what? I was actually thinking about Checkmate by Jadakiss. That was going to be one of the ones that I put on there. And the degree of difficulty would have basically been the fact that 50 was the biggest artist in the world at the time. And Jada just came and chopped him down with Checkmate. LL Jack the Ripper, that was another one, Ty Walton, that I was vouching for. And we're actually going to get in that discussion when Ahmad gets back online, when Coop gets back. Jack the Ripper, to me, I think that the degree of difficulty was huge because this was Kool Moe Dee. Kool Moe Dee was a legend. He had been around a lot longer than L, and he was the big dog at the time. But L did have the beat. And L also had the flow. But I do think that, I think Kool Moe Dee got him lyrically. Now, let me ask y'all in the room real quick while we're still waiting on Coop to get back. Who do y'all think actually won the Cannabis versus LL? And I know that at the end of the day, LL's career was the one that continued to flourish where Cannabis didn't. But a lot of people feel that Second Round Knockout was the better record between the two. What do y'all think? No Shether. Jay, man. Shether. Shether. I don't know. I don't know if the degree of difficulty is that much higher because Remy was coming from the battle scene. Nicki was huge, but I don't think Nicki even attempted to actually go back and forth. Y'all are saying Cannabis record was better. Andre says Cannabis record was better. Um, Luis says LL. I think Jay said LL. Theron said Cannabis was so ill. He was. I truly think that if that happened in the digital era and it wasn't like on radios back, I think that Cannabis and LL's battle would have actually turned out a little bit different. Second round knockout, rattle LL's cage just enough for him to respond, but I'll say Cannabis. So why do y'all think Cannabis actually didn't come out on top on this in this battle? I mean, because he did have a record, but I do think his degree of difficulty was high just on the fact that LL was just who he is. And I was just talking. I was just talking to Coop about that too. Another one that we threw out there was Corrupts calling out names, and he was going at DMX in '98. Huge. LL had a bigger name. Radio, yeah. LL had the bigger name between the two. Now, the other people that we got on the list, and we were just talking about the story added on. I want to actually hear Coop's response on why he actually put that on there. No Vaseline. Rick Ross, idols become rivals. Right. LL was the bigger artist. Cannabis felt overwhelmed. Yep. Let me try Coop real quick, man. Thank y'all for holding on. Sorry about that. Get him back on this line real quick. I think he had a connection issue or something. Somebody, Jay said, so we gotta act like the GOAT album didn't happen. Yeah, the GOAT album really didn't happen too much. Y'all really like that GOAT album? I think Ross has better disses than that too, Theron. What do you think Ross's best diss? I'm thinking the one at 50. We got to take the opponent in consideration. I agree with that. And when Coop gets back on the line, we're going to actually talk about that too. Because I feel like when he went at 50, at the time, if you actually look at it, 50 was huge. Ross was the underdog. And 50 actually went out there and said he was going to ruin Ross's career. And that did not happen. It didn't go that way. We thought that 50 had the ability to shut Ross down, and I think that was the first time that we actually realized that 50 didn't have that ability to shut an artist down anymore. Jay says that LL's best album, he dissed Cannabis on the entire album. First of all, I don't think that GOAT album is anywhere near LL's best album, but that Where I Belong record was dope. Even though that whole you get your lyrics from the internet was kind of Mafia Music by Rick Ross. I agree, Theron. I think Mafia Music should be on here other than the other record, and we're about to talk about that as soon as Coop gets back. Cause yeah, we got to talk about that one because I don't agree with that one. I'm with you on that one, Theron, Andre. All right, Eric Jamal says, did we get the story added on yet? We're about to actually talk about that as soon as Coop gets back. I do think that the degree of difficulty is obviously high in the fact that he said he tried to call me. Let me go ahead and get him back on the line. And he's about to explain this. Because, yeah, we got some explaining to do when it comes to the Ross record and when it comes to this story of Adidon. Hold on, let me call him now, man. Quick, dollars and cents. I was thinking about that, man. I really was thinking about that. But do y'all think MC8 was that much of a challenge for Quick like that? We'll talk about that too. I think dollars and cents is definitely up there. But yeah, I really want to talk about this this mafia music thing. Man, I think he got a janky connection. We just gonna go ahead and talk about this until he hits you back. There we go. We got Cool back. You there?
Yeah, I'm here, man.
What's going on? What's going on? You straight? See, you were trying to. That's it. You were trying a different section of the house, man. No, I'm just kidding. No, okay. Well, we had some really good dialogue in here with the people in the chat while you were gone, and we're gonna get to that Rick Ross thing because Deron brought up a good point, and I really agree with him.
What did I miss?
He brought up the point that mafia music should be up there for Ross instead because, I mean, 50 was at the top of the world. And if you do remember, 50 Cent was out there talking about he was going to ruin Rick Ross's career. He said Ross's career was over after that, and he didn't do it. You know, he came with Tia Told Me, 50 did. He took his baby mama out shopping, all that stuff, and it didn't affect Ross at all. And that was a high degree of difficulty at that point for Ross. Ross wasn't at a point in his career that he is now. He was the underdog by far. But we'll get to that in a second. I want you to finish telling me why you got the story added on there.
No, it was a finishing move is what I'm saying. I mean, if you really look at it, I mean, how about this, Mike? It's like I told you, when the last time Drake made something hot?
That's a good point. And, you know, I think Charlamagne was just on the radio the other day saying that Drake needs a Lil Baby feature. It would help him more than it would help Lil Baby at this point.
At this point, yeah, the game flips and changes on you fast, and that's what I mean. It was a culmination moment. As I actually like Exodus and Infrared more, but it was at the point that I realized Pusha had become enough of a story and done great enough material that it was like he was leveraging the situation on them. It's like, y'all supposed to have all the leverage. Y'all are the big stars in this situation.
Oh, I was actually telling a side story before you got disconnected. And I don't know if you ever heard this because we were talking about the blackface thing, right? With Drake. Right. And so that picture of Prodigy where he is, you know, at the dance school or whatever, they say that came from Ashanti. Well, I've heard this. I don't know anything like totally legit, but yeah, so she went to the same high school, the Performing Arts High School the Prodigy went to, and I guess she was just going through a yearbook or something, or somebody else's yearbook and showed Irv Gotti like, yo, it's Prodigy. And somehow that got over to Jay or something. But
I think the story was his grandmother used to be a dance instructor, though. Or something like that.
Okay. I don't know. I've heard that. So, yeah. But, yeah, I do think that, okay, if we talk about degree of difficulty, obviously Pusha T is the superior MC between Pusha T and Drake, right? So I don't think that's where the discrepancy is. But if you count Drake's writing staff, I mean, he does have writers, so maybe that's difficult when you're one writer going against a team of writers. That's possibly difficult. But
I mean, it's the overall difficulty. It's like Pusha T kind of beat the machine when he beat Drake, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah, now, do you think it's big? Like, I put it on there because if you look at all the records on there, he's really the only guy on there that like really beat the machine.
Yeah,
like, he beat the machine when he won. It's like the machine is set up for Drake to win, even in that battle, because it's like no matter what, Pusha being the superior MC and lyricist, and even making better material over a course of time, it's like it took that moment for it to kind of be like,
Because Jay Prince went on an interviewing tour after all of that, you know, and we never see Jay Prince. He was out there explaining for Drake the whole time. So like you said, it was a team of people that Pusha T went up against. And then when Drake tried to involve Kanye, Pusha's like, nah, this is just me. So I will say the degree of difficulty is high because he went up against a whole institution in this situation.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, Mike, he had been fighting the machine for a minute. It's like he beat the machine finally. It's
with
like,
no help. With no help.
help.
He didn't ask anybody for no help.
No, he didn't, Mike.
Now, let's get to this Idols Become Rivals and why you think that should be on the list over Mafia music. Because Birdman don't rap.
He doesn't rap. So there's a deeper level of exposure to that diss song. Like, he's exposing a whole industry underworld in terms of how things were working. Like Baby ain't the only one that move and operate that way, Mike. And so that's why that record is bigger. I mean, if you look at it, it's like 50 is still relevant now. Like Baby's not as relevant, and that Idols Become Rivals has a lot to do with that. It made everybody take a step back from him, like, oh, that's what we thought it was. But so there's an exposure to that record. Mike, to be honest with you, it's actually one of the more interesting diss records that you'll ever find, because it's almost like it's Ross sitting back and looking at the perspective from a boss's position. It's like, how Pac says, like, on against all odds. Y'all niggas told me not to start a war till I got my mind right, got my money right. Now I'm ready for war. It's like Ross waited till he had bossed all the way up to expose the situation. He's exposing a lot of shit in that record, Mike, just about how these industry dudes roll. And so it was just specifically about Baby because it was tied to so many things that he had seen as a Southern MC coming up, looking up the Cash Money.
I agree with all of those things, but I don't know if that makes the degree of difficulty high. I mean, I think it's impressive for that, but
I think it's pretty high, Mike. Have you ever heard an MC expose an industry executive that way? Like, personally?
Yeah.
Like, from a close perspective. That's what I'm saying. Rappers don't do that.
Yeah.
They're like, how about this? Like, guys may have problems with issues, or somebody like a Puff or Suge or JD. You know what I'm saying? But ain't nobody ever made no record like that about those guys really breaking it down. Like, I thought you niggas really owned them cars.
Theron just brought up a point, and I guess he's in my brain right now, man. He asked, are we going to bring up the Truth from Gucci Mane? One thing I will say about the Truth is that is probably the first diss record I've ever heard an artist perform in the face of another person. And it goes back into what we were talking about before, which one holds more weight when you're doing like little, jabs where you're making fun of somebody or factual information. For me, I think factual information makes for a diss record that has more gravity. And you don't even have to be a super skilled MC to put together a very good diss record either.
No,
I think skill-wise, degree of difficulty. See, we're delving into something that I didn't even think we were going to delve into, because when you think degree of difficulty, you think about the MC as far as like their skill set, whatever. What you just mentioned was an MC versus the industry. This degree of difficulty with Gucci and Jeezy is on some life or death type stuff. So,
we need to be mindful of not touching stuff like that too heavy too.
Yeah.
Like, Media got a bad habit of giving stuff like that too much run. I kind of left some things off for a reason.
I feel you. And that's respectable, definitely.
Like I mean, because Mike, one of my favorite Face albums is the Emeritus album, where he's doing that little Troy. I mean, like, I thought about a few of those records. It's just on that album. You know what I mean? High powered.
Yeah. I mean, but some diss records you just can't come back from, and I think that was the cool thing about, Jay and Nas, is the fact that you can come back from some of that, even though, you don't want to hear Ether in your face all the time if you're Jay, but at the same time, you can come back from it. Now, I don't think there's no coming back from...
Either in the Takeover weren't the type of records that was about to get some shit started in Queensbridge or Brooklyn necessarily, though. You feel me?
I don't think there's no coming back from Remy Ma's Shether. I mean, I don't see how her and Nicki could be too cool after that. I mean, she talked about her brother being a rapist and all this stuff. I mean, some things just get so far where it's like, it's really tough to make up from. I think the Game's Pest Control against Meek Mill was like that. Now, we can go to another, I guess, lighthearted diss record that's on here. Speaking of Meek, Back to Back is on here. And at first, when I saw Back to Back, I was like, you know what? I'm not seeing the degree of difficulty, but I do remember now. People didn't think Drake had Back to Back in him.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I was more surprised at Drake than I was disappointed in Meek. I think people were more disappointed in Meek. I didn't feel that way. Like, I respected Drake after that, because it's like we were talking behind the scenes, Mike. I was like, he was calling out the things in the record that made you think that he couldn't make that record. Like
Yeah.
he was all getting bodied by a singer nigga.
Well, it
I
was the
like,
whole
when-
B Rabbit
like, 'cause,
strategy.
Like, is like, yo, Meek, I know you're not gonna let the singing ass nigga body you.
It was the
on
whole B Rabbit strategy where it was like, I'm gonna say everything about myself, take the wind out of yourself, so you can't say anything.
Right.
I think that the other part of it is the fact that
is that a world tour or your girls tour? It was.
I guess I don't think that's what she meant when she told you to open up more.
Open up more.
Crazy. Whether he had
Yeah.
help writing that or not, those were some very strong,
Trigger fingers turned to twist
unexpected.
fingers.
I'll say that because
Funny.
you think with somebody like Drake, the industry's gonna give it to him, but no, he got that one. And then it took Meek forever to respond, and when he responded with one of the weakest diss records in hip hop history. You know what? Before we get to,
it's hard to make a good record, Mike,
mm-hmm.
and it's hard to make a good record. Even harder, have to pick the topic. Like when the topic's been chosen for you as an opponent, and you have to use your skill level to disseminate and break down your opponent. You can't just go in the studio and vibe or rap about what you want or what you feel that day. You have to go in with a purpose. That is very hard to do.
And Drake was going against somebody who has a reputation from being a battle rapper too.
No,
that's
Mike,
something that we.
That's the degree of difficulty. Mike literally got his deal for being arguably the best battle rapper in a city that is notoriously great.
I agree 100%. And Jay says that Back to Back is the most overrated diss record of all time. Facts. Listen, I agree with you on that, Coop, man. You know what? Other thing, I think Theron brought this up in the chat. You on it tonight? He said MGK. With
Eminem?
Yeah.
That was on my list actually.
This is the thing. We started this topic because the article that was released by Complex where they did the top 50 best hip hop diss songs. You know MGK's record ain't on there?
Mike.
That's crazy.
Mike, the Stillmatic freestyle isn't on there. They got hit him up at number 1. It was all convoluted.
Listen, MGK, I don't care what anybody says. He beat Eminem in a battle. The guy that everybody says will ruin everybody's career. People don't even look at MGK. He's not even a rapper right now. He's a rock star right now. People don't even look at MGK as an MC like that. And he beat Eminem. And the reason why I know he beat him is the fact that it's even debatable. Because if Eminem was such a juggernaut when it comes to this battle shit, it shouldn't even been close. Rap Devil's a good record. Like you just said about Back to Back. Rap Devil is a good record, period.
No, it is a good record. I'm going to submit a few things to you. Like, for somebody that is well-traveled on the battle circuit as Eminem was early on, and for the caliber of people that he has beaten, how much of a hit really is this? I mean, you got to start looking at that too, because
what you mean?
I mean, how much was he really affected by that record, and did he even really put his full effort towards? How about this? Like,
hold on. Let me. I want to answer your question, I guess, with another question. Where it's like, who are you saying was hit by or wasn't hit by the record?
I mean, it just, I don't know if that really resonated. I mean, it caught buzz and fire for a while, and it's a dope record, but did it carry like something like a Back to Back does? Like, Back to Back still get played on some like mix shows.
I mean, that's Drake. That's Drake. And the thing is, that's Drake. The thing is, with MGK, like I said, he put out a record on, let's just keep it real, the biggest hip-hop artist of all time, Eminem. He put out a diss record on him. You supposed to be out of here. Like, we shouldn't even heard that record. And talk about, and Shade 45 won't even let the man in the building. You know what I'm saying? Like, Eminem's a very powerful individual. He might be
super powerful.
Super powerful. And the fact that he can do this and still have a career lets you know how strong he was. You know what I mean?
Hey, Mike, whatever string he can't pull, he got direct lines to people with their names on the buttons. So, like, so that there's no discounting or discrediting that. He can make shit happen with a phone call.
Right.
How about
this? And because Rodney Dunn said M wasn't affected by MGK, he was affected enough to respond. You
No,
know
no,
what
no,
I'm
no.
saying? People that big and powerful don't respond to stuff like that at all.
No. Listen, no. Not necessarily true. So I'm gonna go back to Nas for a minute when 50 started going at Nas. Nas said something very telling about how he dealt with the situation. He's like, he's like 50's good. He's like, but I don't gotta approach the situation with 50 the way I gotta approach the situation with Jay. As in, like, I don't even gotta take that as seriously as y'all think. Like, that's not a concern of mine like that. And he did do a record on 50, the MC Burial, the Don't Bother Yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so he sent a little shot his way, like, hey fam, like, don't come over here and do that.
You talking about Nas though? I mean, Eminem battles Benzino.
No, Mike, Eminem is in that caliber of lyricist.
But he battles Benzino. He's not in that caliber of mindset. He battles Benzino, Everlast, Dilated Peoples. So he's not a person that's thinking like Nas, where it's like, okay, I'm only going at the J's of the world. Eminem battles the bottom feeders. Let's just keep it real. He does.
You know what? No, Mike, you want to know what? You're right. That's a very valid point. That's very valid.
He battles Mariah Carey. So, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Fred Durst. I'm just saying, this is what it is. So it's like, MGK, the fact that he stepped in the ring, I think the fact that he wasn't demolished and blackballed altogether lets me know he won. He's actually doing pretty well with his career right now. And you would think, what everybody says, Eminem ruins your career. It's not true.
Why is he being a rock star instead of a rapper? I'm just asking questions.
He wants to.
So you sure? So you sure that some avenues and some doors and some lanes haven't been closed?
Probably, but okay. That's what I'm saying. The thing is, though, it's like, look, if that's a high level of difficulty, you win at a big dog.
No. I'm saying all of that. I don't know if it's good enough to make this list.
I was impressed by Rap Devil.
No, I was impressed. I just don't know if it's good enough to make this list.
And I guess I thought about it because, somebody brought it up in the chat. And then, idols become rivals. I think it's the same concept, And I think when you talk about business-wise and people possibly being blackballed and all that, I mean, that's just a huge jump, And I think that whether he won or lost, and I know we were talking about this when you were offline, it's a similar concept as Cannabis and LL. And, it's a high degree of difficulty because you're going to somebody that has a wealth of fans, number one, who has a wealth of knowledge in the industry and connections, super powerful, and someone who's really skilled. And you don't have any of those things. And when you jump out the window like that, nobody's going to have your back.
I don't know about all that.
So I said I can't quote one line from MGK. Okay, back to the list. It's
a little dramatic. That's all I'm saying.
So Ice Cube, No Vaseline. You think that's a high degree of difficulty? Ice Cube versus the people that he wrote rhymes for.
I'm only saying that because of how great Niggas for Life sounded, even without Cube being on it, Mike.
Okay.
They were having a moment. He kind of ended that moment with No Vaseline.
He did. He broke the group up. Let's keep it real.
He broke the group up. Thank you. So they made 2 albums. Both of them are all-time hip-hop classics. But that record, Mike, it was just like he exposed them, Mike. It was like cats out the bag. Dre was, you can't tell me that ain't the record that sent Dre out the door. Because when that's going on, Dre is still kind of like, I'm not want to say like in the streets, but like he's still riding around the hood and stuff, and like, yo, your boy Cube out here,
Let me be perfectly clear, based on all of those domino effects.
All your paperwork out in the street.
Based on all those domino effects and the diss records that we've seen before, then and after, I think that No Vaseline is the greatest diss record of all time.
No, you've said that before. If I was just going, just this record, like just top to bottom, just all things being even, not picking anything, that would be in my top 3 or 4. Yeah.
Yeah, and and I say that because, and I know we haven't really expounded upon that, but it's a few things because Death Certificate's an awesome album. it didn't even have to have that record on it. And at the end, he's like, "Oh, you thought I forgot?" And the fact that on America's Most, he didn't say anything about them at all.
Not at all.
It exposed the business. It exposed everything that was going on within that group. And like you said, this is one of the greatest groups ever in hip hop. And your record broke them up, caused tension within the ranks over there with Jerry Heller and Eazy-E. And yeah, it's
Mike, this is when he's rolling with the Lynch Mob. It's like they weren't too far away from each other. It ain't like Cube, like they up the street, Cube talking shit.
Yeah, and they prompted this. You know what I'm saying?
No, they prompted it. No,
yeah,
that's
they
what
prompted
I'm saying.
this.
He's like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and make another classic album. Go ahead and shut you down at the end of this classic album.
Now, and we're talking about records where it's hard for people to come back from, man. I'm sure it was hard for MC Ren to even have a conversation with Cube again. Who do you think got it the worst on that song? I think Ren got it the worst on there.
Mike, they all caught a bad one.
Yeah.
They all caught a bad one.
He picked them off one by one, man. And you know, even though I don't think that Hit 'Em Up is the great diss record that everybody feels that it is, I do think it's probably one of the most impactful diss records ever because, I mean, I think that was the record where people started just saying, you know, talking shit at the end of a record. And after that, we start getting that. It wasn't just subliminals and things like that. You know, it was like people actually was speaking at the end of a record. Like that Ride Out where Pac is just going off is epic. Dilla says, Hit 'Em Up is okay. And he said, Drop a Gem on 'Em by Mobb Deep is the best diss record ever. For the Hit 'Em Up fans, though, cool.
I don't like Hit 'Em Up. Hit 'Em Up is it's just not that good of a song, Mike. I don't care what people say about it. It was on the B-side of How Do You Want It. If it wouldn't have been on the B-side of How Do You Want It, it wouldn't have caught fire and flame like this. It's not even one of his 25 best songs.
Jay says Hit 'Em Up is the greatest. Facts. Look. Why did you put Against All Odds on there over Hit 'Em Up? Could you explain? I know you just explained what you felt about Hit 'Em Up, but
it's better written for one. It's a better written song. It's actually a written song. You know what I mean? It ain't just Pac coming in there and some like Hit 'Em Up sounds like a rage song. You know what I mean? Like Pac work fast, work hard. It sounds like he came in like he wrote Against All Odds because he was trying to convey a message. Once again, about some underlying industry things going on.
Right.
And so, and as time would reveal, a lot of factual things being told in that song, Mike. A lot of debatable things that still get discussed being told in that song. And also, and I said this, Pac was the type of, Pac's a writer. So a writer is taught to pick a subject and to stay on message, which is why I like Pac so much. Like his songs like Dear Mama, on message. So Many Tears, on message. California Love, on message. Ambitions as a writer, on message. Pac is everywhere on that song, and it's one of the few times where you get to see him as a writer go in many different places on one song and have to tie different pieces back together. It's one of his better writing performances.
You know, you're getting a lot of Drop a Gem on them fans in here, too. And you know what? Just looking back on it and...
Drop a Gem on him is a classic, Mike.
For the people who just got in here, you know, just based on degree of difficulty, we got Nas, Ether, Common, The Bitch and You, Mobb Deep, Drop a Gem on them. And you know what? Looking at all of this, man, and just talking about all these, I think Mobb Deep, outside of Nas, might have had the highest degree of difficulty. I mean, to talk about Ether real quick, and the high degree of difficulty with Ether is the fact that, like I said, Nas dropped the most disappointing album to date at that point. Jay was riding high. Jay was at the top of his game. Nas had just lost his mother.
Top of the game.
At the top of the game and his game. Nas had just lost his mother. And, you know, and it looked like everything was closing down on Nas at one time.
And Mike, we didn't know that at the time.
We didn't,
Like, Bob's always been super, super recluse, especially early on in his career. We didn't even know about any issues with his mother until we heard Godson. Right. So that's like 3 year span, 3-4 years separate in between, you know, so.
Right. Well,
That's why the story matters, Mike. When you look back on it, the story matters more than like the impact, because the story is kind of what helps make things what they are.
right, right.
Like this how we just started talking about No Vaseline.
Mm-hmm.
It's the story behind it.
Now, all right, you also have the takeover on there.
Yeah.
With that, so the degree of difficulty with the takeover is based on the fact that Jay went at Prodigy at the top of his game. You know what? I'm gonna be honest. I think him calling out Nas, obviously Nas is Nas, but I think that Jay waited for a time when Nas seemed to be at his weakest point, where he seemed to be at his strongest point. And I never.
Like Floyd Mayweather? Like a Floyd Mayweather would in picking opponents?
I guess. I mean, it was. The thing is, Jay always wanted to be the king of New York, and he worked for that. And I think he ultimately achieved that on paper, right? But I think that he always wanted to go at Nas, and he was waiting for the right time. And he waited for the time when Nas had just dropped the weakest thing that he had dropped, and now it was time to go in. And for that reason, I never looked at the takeover's degree of difficulty high on that level. But the Prodigy point does make it high. I agree with that part.
So I think the degree of difficulty is high because of what you both said. Mm-hmm. He just went at Prodigy and Nas on the same song. And Mike,
did Jail Felony get some shit on there? No, that was something else. No.
He got half a bar. Fuck y'all niggas.
Oh, he got the half a bar. I'm thinking of that, J.O., you're not a felon, you a misdemeanor.
I remember all that. No, I mean, Jay Shetty, I'm a dog. What the fuck is 50 Cent? Like, Jay's like that with it,
Yeah.
But this is what I'm saying, Mike, and people don't realize this. You had to have been there, Mike. He almost ended both of their careers with that one song.
Yeah. And, everybody in the industry at that point was coming to Jay. It was a lot of people.
Yeah. So. The degree of difficulty is still high. I mean, he didn't achieve that. Prodigy was never quite the same. We all know what unfolded with him and Nas. But just at the moment, inherently, and the way he put that song together, Mike, the verse about Nas, it's like, if you're a fan of Nas, like I was at the time when I heard that verse, I was like, oh. Like, the guy we heard between like Illmatic, like I was like, we need that guy to show back up. Like this guy that we heard on I Am and Nostradamus, he's gonna lose to this guy bad. Like we need Nas to show. Yeah, that verse was like that because Jay talked about Nas like a fan at the time was talking about Nas because Jay was a fan of Nas.
Well, yeah, he's a fan of the game. Theron says
so he likes Nas, so he's like, that's a one hot album.
10-year average. Theron said, he said, I had a debate also. Do you think Jay came with Takeover? It's like, do you think if Jay came with Takeover as a response to Ether, would it have had the same effect? If one thing took the first shot, but people always wait for the response. If they were flipped, do you have the same thing? He's basically asking if Takeover was a response to Ether, would the result be the same? I do think Takeover is a better record than Ether as a song.
Beat. It's a better beat, and that's it.
By far.
But the beat is where it wins at, Mike. I mean, Mike, the hook is not a question. Like the hook
I don't know. OC,
Mike,
we running this rap shit. Chris and Nick, we running this.
Mike, he took his own mantra, Mike, and used it against him in a hook, and it's two hooks in one. And so, like, no, but it doesn't take away how great the Takeover is. And even though I think Ether is better, it's mostly in the fact that in a battle, your skill level when you're up against somebody, it's gonna show. And when you're up against Jay, that's going, you're gonna have to bring your A game. He brought his A game to the hook, Mike.
What do y'all think in the room? What's the better record? Not to interrupt you. What do y'all think in the room? What's the better record? Takeover or Ether? Because Vendetta says, in my opinion, Takeover sounds better. Raheem
beat
says
sounds
it would have
better,
been the
yeah.
same result. Ether was just too raw.
Right. So here's what I'm saying. Okay,
Mhm.
so when you listen, here's how it unfolded. First of all, the takeover was done in originally just going at Prodigy, those 3 original verses.
Mhm.
Then Summer Jam happened, and he was like, ask Nas, he don't want it with Hove. Right, he did that live. That prompted Nas to do the Stillmatic diss over the
Right.
Paid in Full beat.
Mhm.
And then Jay went back after he heard that and did the verse to Takeover, and then we got Ether, and then we got Super Ugly. So that's how it unfolded.
That's the chronological order. All right, so we got people in here saying, okay, Takeover. We got Ether by far. Takeover. Ether. Takeover. Ether.
So Mike, Jay is great on Takeover, and when I mean he's great, what he does best, he does on Takeover. Like when you little fuck, I got money stacks bigger than you. Oh, that's prime Jay.
Yeah.
But here's what I'm saying: when Nas levels up, Jay can't fuck with that level, and there are some bars on Ether that separate Nas, the MC, and the lyricist from Jay. And here's what I mean: he actually knows the fact how Jay's trying to leverage position against him in the game at the time. Like Nas sees it. He just made Nostradamus, and that Jay is at the top of the game. So listen to the bar, Mike. You trying to get brolic? Ask me if I'm trying to kick knowledge? Nah, I'm trying to kick the shit you need to learn, though. The ether, the shit that make your soul burn slow. Jay don't think like that as an MC, and when Nas start thinking like that and going at you, it hit different because Nas is saying some shit that literally nobody else is gonna say. The shit that make your soul burn slow, it's like, oh, what the fuck is that? What is that, Mike? He makes
trying to kick knowledge.
And it's a battle, Mike. Is he Dame Diddy, Dame Daddy, or Dame Dummy? Oh, I get it. You Biggie and he's Puffy, and then you hear him in the background going, ugh, and you thinking to yourself like, oh, hold on, because it looked that way. Don't discount like some of that
Christopher
stuff.
says Nas was rambling.
Mike, was they not trying to be Big and Puff though?
You know, I guess.
And don't
to their level of it, you know.
Mike, you already know what time it is. So he was exposing some things. It wasn't just straight like petty little jabs. It's like, nah, that shit was psychological and real. He was exposing some things psychologically. That's what I'm saying.
I like the diss records that actually.
Mike, you seem to be only concerned with dissing women. Were you abused as a child, scared to smile? They called you ugly. He's sitting this nigga on the couch and giving him therapy. That's what I mean about, that's a different level. You talking to somebody that way. Like, he talking about the nigga, and then he's sitting the nigga down on the couch at the end of the song.
Christopher says that Nas was rambling.
That ain't regular MC, that's Jay.
Christopher says that Nas was rambling. Theron said, who wasn't trying to be Biggie and Puff?
No,
and Christopher says that Jay's bars were direct hits at Nas. Yeah, I mean, Jay was coming with the went from Nasty Nas to Esco's, trash. Had a spark when he started, but now he's just garbage. Felt the top 10 to not mention at all.
That's why I keep bringing up the hook, Mike. What does the hook say? I will not lose, but you lost right there. That's why I'm saying the hook is in everything. He took his mantra and beat him with his mantra. The mantra was, I will not lose. That's psychological, Mike. That's what I mean. Nas thinking on another level. That's psychological. I
sampled your voice. You was using it wrong. You made it a hot line. I made it a hot song. You ain't get a coin, niggas. You was getting fucked. And I know who I paid. God Searchlight Publishing.
Right. Yeah, but Mike, Nas was also right when he was like, you was calling me trying to get me on records. That's a fact, too. He had been jocking Nas since they went on tour together with Main Source and Kane in 91.
But who wasn't trying to get Nas on the record? It's not.
Okay, so don't make it seem like he was you. So, Mike, when he's saying, yeah, I sampled your voice, you was using it wrong, Mike, that's not factual at all. The sample he used is coming from The World Is Yours, Mike. Come on. There ain't nothing factual about saying Nas uses something using his voice wrong. It's The World Is Yours, produced by Pete Rock.
I feel
That's hyperbole, Mike, is it not?
I feel you. I think that, it's hard, it's problematic to even have that conversation about which record would have come first, because I feel like if Takeover would have come after Ether, he would have had to have dedicated a whole song to Nas, and we saw what happened when he did dedicate a whole song.
and didn't go well.
I
That's
don't
what I'm
feel
saying.
like he prepared himself to have Nas respond in such a heavy way.
Mike, Nas is a writer. That's what I keep trying to explain to people. Like in a battle, you have to focus in and start disseminating the information. Who's better at that than Nas as a writer in hip hop? That's not Jay's strength. That's what I keep telling people. It's like people look like Jay backed Nas into a corner. It's like, nah, Jay turned down a corner he should have never went down.
Jay's strength is factual and conversational, right? And like somebody was saying, it sounded like a roast. And, it was one of those things where Nas was just, throwing stuff out there while Jay was trying to hit with factual information. Same reason why he did what he did on Super Ugly. And it backfired on him, but he was trying to hit him with the real as opposed to, you got big lips or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
No. There was some of that. No. I get some of the petty stuff people are talking about. I mean, first of all, it's 3 verses, verses 1, and a hook. So like Nas had a chance to dig in more.
Ric Flair says, "I expect more than the dozens from Nas." I agree.
I mean, there's more than the dozen on there, but I mean, I hear what people are saying. There are some bars on there where you're like, oh, that's petty or that's small time, and I get that too. But I told you, Mike, the biggest failure in this battle for Jay was the fact that it's like, oh, you think that you can just end Nas's career with 1 verse?
Yeah,
you're gonna get what you deserve.
I agree with that.
You're gonna get what you deserve when you're that arrogant and you think that way. So he got everything that was coming to him for thinking that he was that great. It's like, dude, I know you think you rock him in '88. But not even Rakim in '88 is killing Nas with 1 verse. But
I do think that 1 verse was a response to the 1 verse on Stillmatic. So I think that's why it was 1 verse. But you're right. Once a full song came, you got to be ready for that.
And he wasn't ready, Mike. He wasn't ready for a war he started. So you're going to take this L. He started it.
He actually did, I mean, what? If we want to be technical, Memphis Bleek started it, right? If we want to be technical, semantics. But all right, so speaking of Memphis Bleek, let's go to another person that's on this list. You got Beanie Siegel on there with the Kiss the Game Goodbye freestyle. Is that what it's called, or was that the Put Your Hands Up freestyle?
I don't know. I think it's called
but I know it was over the Put Your Hands Up beat. Yeah.
It's over the Put Your Hands Up beat. I think it's called the Kiss the Game Goodbye freestyle. Though.
Okay.
You remember it was on the Empire, the Rockefeller Empire Strikes Back mixtape in 2000.
Heavy.
That shit was in the street everywhere. Mike, there was this thing called CDs. Mike, I still have the CD under my bed. Yeah.
Jay says that Beanie body kiss. Excuse me.
He did body kiss. So part of the main reason that I put that on there is there's a few reasons. First of all, Kiss was the guy that people was expecting to be next in line, I guess, after Jay, Big Nas. He was considered to be that next guy in line. Put Your Hands Up was the first single off his album. Rough Riders Rockefeller was doing a lot of work together. These dudes are around each other,
Yeah.
And so I don't know how all of that got started. Those dudes are all ultra competitive, and it was an ultra competitive time for rap. But I mean,
I heard it got started over luggage or something. The Reservoir Dogs, where it was they felt some kind of way, the fact that they were coming in from out of town or whatever, and they were asked to come to the studio now to do Reservoir Dogs, and they was like, yo, we got to go home and put up our luggage. And it was like, well, Jay's working at a pace right now that, if y'all go home and put up your luggage, it ain't gonna be no song to be on when you get back. And and so them niggas felt some kind of way, like, well, shit, would that nigga do the same thing to us? Yada yada. And so the tension started, and I think Siegel took on this beef really for Jay, and I think that's another level of degree of difficulty here too, because dude, you were supposed to go with the main guy, and number 2 got you.
I mean, first of all, the number 2 guy to me lyrically was always as sharp as the number 1 guy. That was the thing that was so frightening about them as a combo. Like anybody that heard Beans in his prime, it's like, and that was Jay in his prime. Oh, rap right next to Jay any day of the week, and he did. So Beans is like that on the mic. But it was the fact, Mike, that it was when Kiss was really supposed to be popping up and bubbling to that next level.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel like that diss ended his buzz because Beans sound better on the beat than Kiss do. And he going through Kiss on the beat. And I love Kiss, but Beans was, I mean, Mike, he was still going when the song going. Like, you hear him at the end of the rap, nah, fuck it, I don't want to stop.
Yeah.
And he's still going in. Like, it's like, oh, it's a whole problem when you get started.
Ric Flair said something, too, and Ric Flair that's in the chat, not like the wrestling Ric Flair. He said, it all started over the Maya track, Best to Me, and the remix. And I've heard that as well.
Oh,
I've
heard that, too.
Yeah.
With Jay getting put on the remix and them releasing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I've heard that, too.
Because,
Mike,
you know.
I ran into Ric Flair 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, he be around here.
Yeah,
I used to see him all the time. But yeah.
You know, I'm from Charlotte, Mike. That's the nature boy. You know, hey, Mike, how about this? He's the only person that I've asked for a photograph with in the last 15 years.
Hey, man, I used to see Ric Flair over at the Delta Sky Club all the time, man. Cool dude.
Nature boy.
Shout out to him. But yeah, I've heard that too, that the Best of Me really started that because they were really putting a lot into Jada to be that, you know, that star that he was supposed to be. Because in the late 90s, early 2000s, that Jada solo album, that was highly anticipated. And this was part of the rollout. And so Jay got in the way of that once that he remixed the Maya joint and they started pushing that instead of the regular one, the Swiss Beats one.
Oh, Mike, and didn't that happen with Fiesta too?
It did happen with Fiesta too.
And hey, Mike, I always liked Kiss's version of Fiesta better. That was just me.
It's like, nigga, you always coming behind me or something? Like, it's crazy.
Right.
So,
it was almost like it was almost like he was trying to keep him from leveling up.
Mm-hmm.
But Beans kept him from leveling up with that diss, Mike.
I think that Beanie Siegel's, well, that's just one of them because back then, there was a whole bunch of freestyles that, like, Siegel was just doing live. But he was going for, like, 10 minutes. And he really was on D-Block's ass, man. And you know what? I'm just going to keep it 100. Back then, Siegel was better than Kiss, man. He had the records to prove it. He had the albums to prove it. He had the collaborations to prove it at that point. And then he leveled up, like you just said, with the diss records and was the clear victor. Because I know a lot of people say that Jada won that, and I hear people say that. You can tell they're Jada fans. But tell me which record did that. Because when you talk about Jada and 50, you could point to Checkmate. Yeah, or you could point to...
Checkmate was on my list.
Checkmate's dope. Yeah, we were talking about Checkmate earlier when you were offline. And what's the other one?
With DMX. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the I Shot Ya beat. What do they call that? Problem Child, a child with a problem, something like that. Yeah,
like that.
Yeah. So we can point to those, but when it comes to Jada and Beans, what record you gonna point to that demolished Beans? Because there isn't one.
No, there wasn't. No.
Ric Flair says Styles did better against Beans than Jada.
Styles is more built for that. I mean,
I like Styles and Beans. That's a good matchup right there.
That's a good matchup.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, Mike, the coldest shit that Kiss, that he did to Kiss was when he said, "I can see why Styles say he the ghost of your shit. I can tell from your flow he wrote most of your shit. Your name, nigga, most of you, bitch." Right. Ugh.
Crazy. And you know, it's funny, man, because on that list from last week, you had Beanie Siegel / Styles P at 25. They're very comparable.
Styles got the catalog at this point.
Styles does have the raw talent, though. Beanie Siegel's tough to beat.
I mean, raw talent. Beanie Siegel has top 5, top 10 all-time MC capability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, to me, and I'm gonna keep it real with you. I mean, obviously the Jay and Nas back and forth was legendary, but to me, I thought that the Jada Siegel was more entertaining.
It was more entertaining. Yes,
it was way more entertaining to me.
How about this? Because Jay and Nas were even so big at that point, it's like, oh, am I going to get a record when they drop an album? Are they really going to show up to Hot 97 and like freestyle? You know,
we knew we were getting mixtape records from these guys whenever.
Mike, I was about to tell you something funny. That's where I got that I don't want to hear that happy shit from. I got that from Siegel when I was in college when they ran up Hot 97 and they was dissing Nas and they played the Nas is like beat and Siegel was like, cut that happy shit off. We don't need to hear no happy beats.
Oh man.
I loved it, Mike, and I was a Nas fan and I loved it. You know what I mean? Because he was just about it like that.
And all right, so the list we got, I'm trying to think if we left anything off, man. We talked about No Vaseline. What are some things that... Oh, this is what I want to talk about. Because we're talking about the late 90s, early 2000s. I think that Kurupt's calling out names going to DMX in 1999 really should get some sort of consideration. I know X was huge. He never really responded directly. Maybe some subliminals here and there, and maybe Kurupt was easy to ignore, but Kurupt went in.
He did.
He really went in, and
that was one of the ones on the list that I felt like almost made the list. Like I had that in second round knockout, like a little bit outside.
I think that Kurupt is a superior lyricist than X. X is the superior artist and overall rapper, but
I'm about to say X is better at everything else, though.
Yeah, and so I guess that it might not have been a degree of difficulty
Did X ever give that any real attention to?
He didn't really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think that was around the time where his stars started shining so bright, Mike. I think he was more concerned with getting the movie money at that time too. So it was kind of one of those things like, I'm gonna go get this $10 million check over here, like whatever.
Theron said that it was a reach. I could see someone feeling like it was a reach. Because the West Coast was on its way back, and the East Coast had kind of taken it back, and Kurupt was like, hey, let me go at one of these guys. I mean, I know it was over the Foxy Brown thing, allegedly, but still, I don't know if it warranted a record like that, but the record was strong. What are some of the ones that you wanted to put on your list on the degree of difficulty that you felt like you might have left off, or just based on our conversation that, should be considered?
Hey, Mike, I found Piggy Bank to be a super entertaining diss record.
I never liked Piggy Bank.
I like Piggy Bank. I like it more than Back Down. I do. He's first of all, he picked some heftier competition to lift against. That's what I mean about that degree of difficulty. It's like, he went at Fat Joe, Kiss, and Nas. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I like how he ended. You know what I mean? This ain't chess. This ain't checkers. This is chess. These is warning shots. After your next move, I give you what I got. It's like, he was showing he was game for it.
Like, what? Speaking of those people involved, with the exception of Nas, my favorite 50 disc record to that crew is I Run New York.
Right.
Yeah. When he went at Jada, Styles, and Fat Joe on that was crazy, man. Him and Yayo murdered that, and there was that Mobb Deep beat. The beat was crazy.
Right. Checkmate's still better, but
Checkmate is better. But it's hard to say, again, like you said, for those same reasons. He knows that those individuals are better rappers than him.
Right.
So he still went, and Yayo too. Like, Yayo's out here talking about Fat Joe and Jada. That's crazy.
Yeah, talking about Fat Joe is crazy, Mike.
Like, you got Yayo out here talking about Sheik Luch went double plastic. You know what I'm saying? And Fat Joe ain't a gangster. He's scared to fly. I would consider I Run New York in there.
I remember when I heard that, I was just like, it's like, man, like, y'all better hope Joe don't like run up on y'all.
Now, what do you think about people thinking that
like
Sheether?
Before the other rappers.
What do you think about people who think that Sheether should be considered in this?
I mean, it's just hard but she pulled it from another great diss record, so it's so hard for
That's
me
what
to
I felt like.
Try to put it in there. Yeah. It was a pull. It wasn't an original copy. Diss records are supposed to be original copies for the most part. You know?
Well, you know what? Some people jumped on other beats, like when T.I. jumped on 99 Problems to go
No,
flip or
it's
something
not the
like
other
that.
beat part of it that's a problem. Like, I mean, 10% Diss is the same beat as Top Billin' damn near. Like, it's
Right.
not the beat that you're talking about. I'm just talking about, like, concept-wise, she already had a framework in a format, you know?
Right.
Even when you're hearing Light on 10% Diss for the first time, hot damn ho, here we go again. That's the first time you heard a chick, like, you know?
Yeah, right.
Go at another chick, like, really go at, like, you know?
Yeah,
Which
I
was
agree.
on my list too. That almost made my list too, just because I thought 10% Diss was so dope and so groundbreaking.
Yeah, but Antoinette. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Antoinette and like
difficulty. Yeah.
and what we discovered just going through this list, a lot of the times in rap, it is a talent gap when you talk about people who are going at certain people. Like, no disrespect to Flip, but there's a talent gap lyrically from T.I. to Flip. It just is. We rarely see two comparable MCs go at it, and that's why the J and I's was special. That's why the Siegel and Jada was special because, again, I know everybody,
it's rappers in their weight class. They're in their weight class. It's like when you look at J and Nas, it's like, oh no, they should be. Yep, that's the weight class. Jada and Beans. It's like no, proper weight class. So it makes those battles more enjoyable. Right. Because you really don't know who's gonna be the victor, Mike. You really don't know.
Hey, you remember when Eminem Dre? But you know what? It was Eminem Dre. But when Exhibit did that diss record on Jermaine Dupri, I felt like, what am I listening to, man? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
one of my favorite diss records is actually when they got Busta on the Hail Mary beat.
I didn't like that.
I didn't like
that. I didn't want to hear Busta Rhymes dissing Ja Rule. I'm sorry, I didn't, man. Like,
no, Mike, that was great. He told Ja Rule to apologize to his fans.
Listen, man, I love Busta Rhymes as an artist. What did he even have to do with that, man? You know what I'm saying? Like,
everywhere. I told you, Mike. Busta is invited in every studio he's ever walked in his life, pretty much. And
Andre asked, the Bridge Is Over is not on this list. No, because, again, we talking about KRS-One and MC Shan. And you want to tell me that MC Shan is a top 10 MC all time? That's a hard argument to make.
I don't even know if Shan would make a top 50 list at this point. Would he, Mike?
I mean, let's be real. It's what it is.
Right.
And so again, that factors in, and we're talking about like all the diss records that Eminem has out there. Like, I guess you could say the one he did at Cannabis, but he did this when Cannabis was a little bit over. He no longer had the support of the music industry. Cannabis had went to war. He went to Iraq. I think he was in Iraq when Eminem was dissing him. He was in the army. You know what I'm saying? Like, so degree of difficulty matters, but it's funny that, once we start going through this list, we start realizing that a lot of MCs in hip hop have cherry picked. What do you think about Quick and MC8 though? I think that was comparable.
Ooh, Mike, Dollars and Cents was on my list.
Yeah.
I thought he got 8, even though I thought 8 is a better MC. I thought Dollars and Cents was a better diss record. That was one of the ones on my list. It's just, if you're on the West Coast, that's going to carry a lot of weight. You know what I mean? Because 8 is, Compton's Most Wanted. What was his Stay Strapped, I think?
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah.
Have we ever had a lesser skilled MC take out a more skilled MC in a battle?
A lesser MC.
Someone who's significantly not as good as that next person.
I mean, Mike, that's where I would lean on the Bitch in You again, because Common in 1991-92 is not a Ice Cube's level. That's why that record is on there. Actually.
That was a David and Goliath situation. I give you that.
Right? like Ice Cube was probably the preeminent figure in rap when Common dropped that song. Nobody really knew who Common was.
And Cube made
He was still
arguably the greatest diss record of all time, so it wasn't like he was foreign.
The year before, he had arguably made the greatest diss record of all time. And so the fact that Common even came along and made a record that was comparable to No Vaseline, which was considered to be the greatest diss record of all time at the time, and it was actually talking about Cube. I mean, Mike, that's one of the most brutal bars of all time. You slanging St. Ides and bean pies in the same sentence. Ooh. Vicious.
What did you think about the Common and Drake?
Not much. I thought Sweet was an entertaining record though.
I did. I wasn't a huge. I mean, the beat was hard. The beat was hard. I agree with you. I don't think Common should have done that. Yeah. And I think that Drake's verse on Stay Scheming was harder. It is what it is.
Yeah, you can say that.
It was.
You can say that.
And because it was unfortunate.
I just didn't like that for Common at that point in his career. And
I didn't like that either.
I didn't like it for him. Yeah.
It wasn't necessary.
And the music and the music wasn't there at that point in time either. I would have felt much more better about it had it been around the Be Finding Forever time and he was more in.
Well, you know what? I like the Dreamer Believer. I actually think the Dreamer Believer. I like Black America Again too. These are quality albums, but it's not.
Black America Again is better. I don't like the Dreamer, the Believer. It's just all right. Like, how about this? When I heard Ghetto Dreams with Nas, I was like, this album better not sound like that. Like, should be greater than it is.
Yeah, yeah. Ghetto Dreams was on the Dreamer Believer.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, that was my take on that album. Is like, that record is dope, but it's not what it should be for those two guys to be getting together for the first time, and that's how I felt about that album as a whole.
Well, I think Common proved in that instance that he could do the battle. I'm talking about in the Cube instance, but I guess at that latter point in his career, when it was time to go with Drake for whatever reason it was for, it just didn't have that same sting. So,
yeah, he had his hands on too many other things at the time. That's what I mean. I didn't like it for him. It's like, oh, you can't put your focus and energy behind it like that. And this dude is super big right now. So
yeah, I think that, there's a thing about longevity where I think for a lot of guys, you get points for longevity as you should. But I do think that musically, the longer people like Snoop, LL's done it, and Common stay around, I think their profile drops a little bit. I mean, they're dropping music that is a lot less interesting, from what we're used to.
They're actually better off, legacy-wise, they're better off not dropping music, actually.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And because we see how people who don't drop music at all keep a high profile, a.k.a., half of Outkast. But you
Hey, Mike, you want to know what? I know we're getting out of here in a second. I'm glad you kind of brought that up. I've been going through Outkast's catalog, and this ain't nothing diss-related right quick, Mike, but I'm becoming frighteningly disturbed at how many of these songs sound like Big Boy was the creative mind and spirit of them, and Dre jumped on. A lot of the Outkast records are starting to sound that way to me.
I agree with you. What are some of the ones that stood out to you? Because I could rattle off a few.
I'm about to say, truthfully, Mike, on Southern Playalistic, they appear to be together and in unison, and you really can't call it.
Oh, no. I could call a couple on Southern Playalistic. I think
I was about to say, Mike,
Ain't No Thing.
I was about to say, if you want to start splitting hairs, Mike, Ain't No Thing, Southern Playalistic, and Players Ball sound like Big Boy.
Well, I mean, all right. Southern Playalistic and Players Ball, that sounds like organized noise. I'll say that. But I think that, Ain't No Thing sounds like Big Boy came up with the hook.
Yeah, that's Big Boy.
And of course, Claiming True. I wonder how you will be at interview in my shoes. I put in work and did the dirt. That's how I pay my dues. 1, 2, 3.
That's how it. Right.
Now I'm kind of conflicted with Hootie Hoo.
Mike, I was about to say Hootie Hoo. Come on, Mike.
That sounds like Big Boy. And just based on the fact that all these other hooks clearly a Big Boy, Hootie Hoo probably is too. Big Boy is on my left. Andre's on that right. Tight like hallways, smoked out always. I don't know. That could be Drake.
I mean, Mike, like I said, on Southern Playalistic, you can tell they did a lot of it together, and so it's harder to call it on Southern Playalistic. But Mike, on ATLiens and Clemenot and Stankonia, you can go back and it's like, okay, Big Boy.
I
Mike,
think Elevators is Big Boy's
AT
hook. Big,
Aliens,
yeah.
AT Aliens,
Mhm.
Elevators,
Mhm.
Over the Woods. Like those three stand out. Those sound like Dre literally came in and recorded his verses after Big Boy got started.
Yeah. Over the Woods is Witch Doctor, right?
Mike, Mike. When I'm saying it sounds like Big Boy, I'm saying it sounds almost like some of these tracks. It's like Big Boy started recording them,
Yeah.
and Dre came in after Big Boy.
Now Wheels of
After Big
Steel
Boy,
is probably Dre, but again,
Wheels of Steel is Dre.
but
Yeah.
again, that's mostly showcasing the DJ. I mean, he really didn't say too much on there. Wheels of Steel, show me how you feel. But the full out hooks, the Me and You, the singles. I think
Mike,
Rosa Parks is Big Boy. Yeah.
I say Rosa Parks, Mike. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So when you
All the
start looking
storytelling is Big Boy. It's like that
Mike,
now.
Mike,
You better
Mike,
go
Mike.
get the hump about your back now.
Hey, Mike, tell me that Fody Odi Dopalicious isn't Big Boys and Dre just wasn't inspired at how pimped out Big Boy had made it and started it off.
I don't know about Spody. I don't know about that one. That's again, that's Sleepy influence. I think that's
Big Boy's record and Dre came in. I think Big Boy's part got recorded first.
Jazzy Bell is somebody asked about Jazzy Bell. That's just the vocals. But yeah, if we're talking about the cast songs that were, the first three classics that everybody talks about, the songs that were the hits were Big Boy. Now I think Dre probably did Skew It on the Barbie.
I mean, no, these songs still aren't the same without Dre, but I'm saying it's if they're the greatest group of all time, we need to start looking at it like Big Boy might be the creative force and driving spirit behind that. Not Andre, it's always been looked at in the inverse.
Yeah, I agree.
We may be reframing that over time because time has gone by now, and we can see stylistically over time now, it's like, oh, hold on. Like, and here's the thing, Mike. Big Boy used all his best shit on Outkast.
I mean, even the solo stuff the Big Boy has, I could hear those records, were created by the person that made the hooks that we were just talking about. Like,
right.
Me and You, Yo Mama and Yo Cuz. That's clearly Big Boy.
Clearly Big
Throw your hands in the air. Yeah, man. I mean, and see, I think the disrespectful part is when people act like Dre was just in this group by himself. No,
Mike.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go too far into this Outkast riff. You just bought them up right quick. I've been playing their shit, so I just wanted to kind of, Big Boy some flowers, creative driving force behind.
Okay, well, before we get out of here, we were just talking about that bar that was on Conway's verse on that Noriega song with Conway and Method Man. He said that after this next album, what did he say? I don't want to misquote him because this is an important quote. Because I texted to you before the show. The record is dope, by the way. But yeah, he said, one more album and I'm done with all parties involved. Is Conway leaving Griselda or something?
It appears that way.
I hope that's not what it is. But, I do feel like Westside has prepared all those guys to be able to spread their wings in whatever way they need to. And hopefully, as fans, we'll still be able to hear people work together. And all of this is more so paperwork than actual collaboration cut off.
I hope so, Mike. But Mike, when we reviewed From a King to a God, I told you, I said Conway is super competitive. I said he is watching his little brother get all this shine as a creative and driving force behind Griselda. He is watching his younger cousin get all the MC credentials in Benny. He is watching these artists be put into the pipeline of something, like he said, West bought the land, but I did the construction, something that he built. When you got guys like Method Man and Nas saying, you that dude, and you're not getting treated like that dude within your own crew, there is the potential for problems there.
Andre says that he addressed that. He said that he was just joking. He's dropping Friday. So okay.
Mike, I'm gonna be honest. You know, I follow all those guys, and I've been noticing for a couple of weeks when you kind of put me on to it that, like, you know, I saw Benny had liked the video because I hadn't heard the whole song. I just checked Conway's page last night because I know he's been dropping all his new artists. That young lady we really digging and stuff, and I'm pretty sure Flea probably got something coming soon. But I went on the page and just saw the verse and stuff. But I saw that Benny had liked it and that Westside had liked it too, and they had put up, you know, the G and all that. I'm like, okay, cool, because for about 2 weeks there was none of that, and so, you know, like we talked about this last year, Mike. That ain't just like music relationships; they are blood.
Yeah, and so, we've like, always talked about that being one of the forces behind the fact that they're able to be so unified regardless of what happens. And, you know, as a fan of them and a fan of hip hop, I just want to see that continue to go. And there's ways that you can sever ties business wise with certain parties and still be able to work together and still be cool. I mean, we've seen it with Rick and Russell too. I mean, you know, they sever ties in that way, you know. But
I was frightened, Mike. Like, all jokes aside, as a head, I was frightened at the possibility of getting a Conway, a Benny, or a West Side project that don't got no Griselda songs on it. I was like, no.
Yeah.
Like, it's gotten to the point that it's important that y'all do those records because we check in for y'all to do those records together because we want to know who's gonna do the best joint on whose album or had the best vert at this point because y'all done made showing out on each other's records and albums such a thing now. So it's like just the hip hop head of me is like, no, don't stop that, Mike. I want to hear George Bondo and Spurs 3 and 98 say, Brutus.
Tony Stark says, it's my first time on here. How often are you guys going live? We go live once a week. Usually it's going to be a Friday at 8 o'clock. But, you know, we pushed it over a day or whatnot. But go to our YouTube page, According to Hip Hop, According to number 2, and you can catch all the back episodes. And shit was crazy. It's great. We got people in here who interact with us on a week-to-week basis. We've talked about everything. It's all up there. Andre Shasir says, Brutus. Yes, and you know what? I don't know if I've talked about this on the show or not, but I know you and I talk about this all the time. I didn't know that Pete Rock produced that until like a couple of weeks ago. And I was floored by the fact that as much as I've listened to Brutus over 100 times probably. And Pete Rock produced that?
Mike.
Pete Rock's the GOAT. I'm just going to say it, man.
Mike, there are probably certain songs that when I hear them, I will play them for years if the song is that great. Like, not a week will go by without me not listening to that record. Brutus is one of those records, Mike. I listen to Brutus every week at least once.
Shit crazy, man. I'm going to listen to it in a minute, man.
Right, I was about to say, just talking about Brutus is making me want to listen to Brutus. Mike is about to get some more run because I ain't listened to it this week.
I mean, to me, all of them killed it. Like, Westside killed it. Conway murdered it. And the way that's the best order they have to me. When it's Mike, Benny, Westside, and then Conway,
The reason that Brutus and George Bondo are the best two Griselda songs isn't about what Benny and Conway do. It's about what Westside's doing on those two verses. Because Mike, they're all-time great on those records. He ain't that far behind them on that record. Like Westside's verse on George Bondo is bananas.
I was about to say, his verse on George Bondo might be his best verse.
Might be, Mike. When I heard that verse, I was like, that might be his best verse.
Yeah.
And Mike, he needed to have his best verse. Look what they did when they came on.
Yeah, man. Pray for Paris is a classic. It's going to be a cult classic. It's one of those records that I listen to it often, and it sounds better whenever I hear it, man. And it stands alone. I mean, it was the hands down. A lot of people felt like From King to God could have been the album of the year last year. It could have been. Alfredo as well. It could have been. But it's something about Pray for Paris that just sonically comes together differently. I think where people struggle to give an album like that album of the year is because they feel like the MC on there isn't the most talented MC, and a lot of features kind of hold things against people too. But you got to listen to the music, man. Like, I mean, it's just what it is. The music stands alone. It ain't even about the individual, man. That album is different.
It is, Mike. I told you the first time that I heard it, when I heard No Vacancy, I was like, oh, shit, this about to go down like a classic. And then George Bondo comes on, and you're like, Like by the time you get the Versace and Sean versus Flair, you're like, hold on, I'm looking for the. You're like, oh shit, like, oh hold on, like hold on, we on track number 9. He's on fire, NBA Jam style on fire on that album.
Well,
like,
you know what? They're saying that Conway's dropping Friday, so we're gonna be talking about that next week because we haven't been able to talk about any new releases. We haven't been able to talk about any new releases because nothing's come out, and so we've been talking about different lists, and we've had great shows with it. But I'm excited to start talking about some new music again because 2020 spoiled us with all the great music that came out, and that's kind of how this whole show developed this whole buzz anyway. From talking about new music, and we might be able to do that next week, hopefully.
Well, hold on. I want to say, first of all, I mean, we didn't start the podcast. Obviously, we started the podcast because of the pandemic. Because before that, I was writing articles and music reviews about these projects that was dropping. It's given us much more of an avenue to talk to the people directly. I mean, it takes me away from my crazy process of writing something 3, 4, 5 times before I send it to you. But most of all, let's remember, that part, big time saver. But most of all, Mike, let's remember 2020, although one of the best rap years ever, it really got off to a very slow start, kind of like this one last year. The only really projects that dropped in the first 3 months that I think carried weight throughout the year were probably Lil Baby and Royce's The Allegory. Everything else was April and beyond. I love the fact that the first album that we may get to talk about this year is Conway's. That is such an appropriate way to start off the music review.
Andre says it's another collabo with Big Ghost producing the whole thing.
Oh, Big Ghost LTD again.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the Big Ghost project. It didn't stay with me that well, but Conway's in a fucking zone. So anything, yeah.
All right, man. Well, I will holler at you next week and throughout the week, obviously. And we're gonna holler at the rest of y'all. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Like I said before, go to our YouTube page if you want to check some of the back episodes or check the rebroadcast of this episode. And we will see y'all next week.
Hold on, Mike. One more thing. Can we tell the people about what we about to drop yet? Are we?
Well, yeah. I mean, you know what? It'll be available next week, so we'll talk about it in length next week. You know, just formatting some of the pages right now. So yeah.
I mean, Mike. I mean, just let me know. Do I need to play defense on Magic Johnson like Scotty did in '91 so we can get this ring?
No. We'll give everybody a full thing about it next week. So yeah, it's real special. And like you said, 2020 was a special year. So. Yeah, we're going to get that going next week.
Okay. Or maybe you need me to get a triple-double like you did against the Suns? Okay, go ahead.